tend to be about, I'd say, a week to a week and a half behind other parts of the valley. And honestly, I'll take that because we had spring frost, and when a lot of people were up turning on frost fans and protecting their crop, I was sleeping. It was great. Our buds stayed dormant. So yeah, we're about a week to a week and a half later in bud break, and then by the time harvest comes around, we're still about a week after places like Seven Hills and the Rocks and Milton-Free Water. So slightly behind, but not too bad. We gain a lot of ground too because all the warm air from the valley rises, and so we benefit from a little warmer evenings. And also we're moderated, so when we get a heat spike, we tend to be a little cooler up here. So the vines, instead of shutting down above 95 or 100 degrees, we kind of stay active up here for a little, a couple extra hours a day, which can count for a lot. You can see we're through bloom. You can see the remnants of the flower. But you can see the little berries just forming. So right now they're just focusing on growing and developing. So like I said, set looks pretty good. When you shake the cluster, if you have a lot of rain or wind during bloom, you'll see a lot of these berries just kind of sloughing off, and then you end up with a less full cluster, which isn't necessarily a terrible thing, although it can lighten yields significantly. But we're happy with what we are seeing right now. Everything looks balanced. The cluster size is very polite. No, not overly huge. No wings we really have to worry about, which is nice. At this stage, there's nothing to be done with the clusters. We're just going to let them continue to develop. What we are going to work on is the crew is, as we speak, they'll probably be in this block within days. We're going to start removing lateral growth that forms. So these are what we call laterals, and that forms off of the primary shoot. So it's basically a secondary shoot. So on the east-facing side of the canopy is where we start to thin that out, and that allows for more air movement, more sun penetration. We don't do aggressive leaf removal, because it can get quite warm here, so we kind of leave one layer of leaves to protect the crop, but we do remove those laterals and open it up. And so kind of what we're going for is a dappled light. If you look at the ground right here, you see a solid shadow. The sun coming through the canopy. By the time we come through and thin this out, you'll see sort of specks of light through it all, and that's kind of the dappled effect we're going for in general. Some varieties where you might thin a little more, some varieties a little more sensitive will thin less. It's kind of a gradient, but in general, that's how we manage the canopy here. On the opposite side of the canopy is where the long afternoon sun hits all day. So other than kind of hedging laterals on that side, we really don't touch that side, because you can end up with sunburn, you can end up with some damage to the actual rachis, things we want to kind of avoid. So when the crew is working, you'll always see them on this side of the vine working, and rarely will you see them facing the Blue Mountains. So we are in block 35 Syrah, which Amavi purchases Syrah from. As opposed to the Cabernet leaves, these are much larger leaves. I have pretty big hands. They're bigger than my hands. Very long petiole on that leaf. And one thing that you really have to be careful with Syrah is what we call the internode, so the space between the buds on Syrah is extraordinarily long. And so if we get too crazy removing leaves, I'll just show you an example. We remove that leaf, all of a sudden we have a bare stem right here in a completely exposed cluster. So canopy management in Syrah is much gentler touch than it is Cabernet and in other varieties.